So I am a publicist, and among other things, I'm a fashion publicist. I won't be offended if you just cringed at that, because those two things are often thought of as two of the most shallow industries in the world. People think that fashion is all about spending a crazy amount of money to make yourself look good on the outside, and that PR is all about helping brands and people manage the way the world thinks about them, helping the people that pay us the most money get famous so that they can make more money. In either case, who you are doesn't matter, but it does. Fashion is a form of self-expression. We use it to communicate who we are, how we want the world to see us, and our core values as women. We can use it to be chameleons. We can be sweet and conservative in the office, sexy and risque when we're with our significant other. We can use fashion as an art form, a form of expressing our creativity, or it just serves functional purposes, like keeping us warm and dry and not getting arrested for public indecency. But when used right, fashion can be one of the most powerful vehicles for creating economic change. We can use it to fuel economies and employ people. Fashion can be used to lift people out of poverty or keep them in it. Fashion can fill landfills full of clothes or clothe people for years, protecting or harming our environment. Not long after I started my career in fashion, I started to stumble upon things. A fact here, an article there, about some of the brands that I had really begun to love and their practices that were harming people and the planet. I had this email I received one day from a reporter at Bloomberg, and I remember it was a single sentence email that just said, "I think you'll be interested in this," and it had a link to a story on the company's website. I remember so vividly the minutes that followed. I started to read a story about a 13-year-old girl named Clarice in Burkina Faso. The story was about her nightmares that were full of frightening images and loud noises and a stick raised threateningly above her head by the arm of a grown man. My fingers clung onto the edges of my seat as I read about how this same man who threatens her dreams threatens her life as well, beating her and screaming at her as her small arms reached the point of exhaustion from picking cotton on a farm she was forced to work on. I actually couldn't believe it when I read that she's only fed once a day, if at all, and that once a bright student praised by her teachers, she'd been forced to leave school in pursuit of this blight life path. But I really froze in horror when I realized the underwear I was wearing at that very moment was made by the company in this story. And there was a tag on them that said made with 20% organic fibers in Burkina Faso. I was sick to my stomach. I was shocked. I felt like I had been fooled, and I was outraged. But I knew that this story on Bloomberg and all of the attention it was going to bring with it meant things that were about to change. Women like me would not stand for girls like Clarice being forced to make our undergarments. It was the holiday time, and that's one of the most important times of year for a fashion brand. So they're going to have to bounce back fast with some major crisis communication work if they were going to recover from this. Or so I thought. In the days and weeks that followed, I monitored the news, and outside of a pretty generic response from the company, the media was silent on the issue. That's when I realized I was working against the system, not with it. The models, parties, dollars, ad campaigns oftentimes was covering a world that was very dirty and ruled by money. But there is good news. This is the world that we inherited, not the one that we created. This world we're coming from lacked the transparency to see the impact of our purchases, but with technology and connectivity, we can finally start to see what that looks like. Still, there's this thing that I always wrestle with. We buy clothes to reflect who we are as people, but so often the brands that make those clothes don't reflect our values at all. Ladies, we have to get our britches in line with our beliefs. this world that we're coming from was ruled by a drive for profits, but it doesn't have to be that way. Clothing isn't bad, and fashion isn't something that you should be ashamed about enjoying. We have the opportunity to use our purchasing power and create a ripple effect of actions that do so much more than just put money in someone's pockets that already has plenty of it. We can use our purchasing power to transform communities and create opportunities. We can buy clothes that save lives. But in order to do that, it is up to every single one of us to act intentionally. And I have a few ways for you guys to do that. First of all, when you're shopping, look for quality over quantity. Buy classic staples, not trends, things that will last you for years to come. Whenever possible, opt for vintage or used fashion. You're creating less demand and less drive for the creation of new products. If you own a company, check out a product called Freedom from Made in a Free World. It's a digital tool that actually enables you to see where you might have slave labor in your own supply chain. Similarly, if you're a consumer, you can take their quiz online at slaveryfootprint.org, and it will actually show you where you might be employing slaves in your daily practices. Research the brands that you shop from frequently. You should be able to find their environmental and humanitarian practices on their website, but if you can't, send them a note and ask them about it. Speak up. After all the tragedies in Bangladesh, many companies signed new agreements to finance fire safety and building improvements, but plenty of others have yet to jump on board. When you encounter issues like that, reach out to the companies, take to Twitter and email and tell them what you think. Find marketplaces that specialize in ethical fashion. There are plenty of websites like Enru, Tom's Marketplace, Helpsy, and Amber Valletta's new company, Master and Muse, that specialize in these kind of products. You'll find everything there you would find in a normal boutique, plus you'll have really cool stories to tell about what you're wearing when people compliment your outfit. And finally, keep a list of ethical brands that you come across that you really like so that you have them on hand when you're going to buy something. I find that connecting with them on social media and following them on my Instagram helps keep them top of mind. Now, in full disclosure, the ethical shopping space still only makes up less than 1% of the $1 trillion global fashion industry. And outside of a few brands like American Apparel, Stella McCartney, and Reformation, many of these aren't national brands with brick-and-mortar storefronts for you to shop from. Those facts might make shopping ethical seem really difficult, but I promise you it's not. 1% is still a lot, and it's a 1% that is steadily growing. Over the past decade, we've seen so many amazing companies come into the ethical fashion scene, and I'd love to tell you about a few of them. Seiko is a brand that uncovered an issue preventing women from accessing higher education in Uganda. So they created this sandal and accessory company that employs women for 9-month periods of time. Afterward, they're empowered to go and get a college education, enabling them to become doctors, lawyers, teachers, and anything else that they can dream of. Thinx is a company that makes underwear for women here. With each purchase, they provide menstrual supplies to women in need in developing areas of the world. They created the company after uncovering the fact that 100 million girls miss school simply because they don't have supplies to manage their period. The Giving Keys is a company based right here in downtown LA that employs incredibly brave people transitioning out of homelessness to make key necklaces like the one you see around my neck right now. Each key is emblazoned with a word like love and hope and courage, and the wearer of the necklace is encouraged to give the key to someone else when they meet someone who needs that word more than they do. I know how incredibly blessed I am to get to spend my life and my work with companies like these. And even more so, traveling the globe and experiencing new cultures side by side with people who are giving it all to change the world. I'd love to end with just a really short story about an experience I had while I was traveling with one. Raven & Lily is a company that creates accessories, fashion, and housewares by employing women in 13 different regions of the world. They create eco-friendly products, enabling people to access economic opportunity, and through that opportunity, they tackle some major issues like sex trafficking and huge women's injustices. On my first trip abroad with them, we found ourselves in an area outside of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. We were with a community of women who are HIV positive and had gone to live there because they'd been ostracized from their communities. They'd also been misinformed that if they came to this town and drank the holy water, they would be cured of their disease. But once they were there, they settled into the reality that the only future for them was begging. Enter Raven and Lily, who worked alongside community leaders to create job skill training programs and employ them, and also send their kids to after-school programs. We were conducting a series of video interviews with the women there, and I had the opportunity to ask them questions from behind the camera. I, through a translator, of course, asked them questions about their daily lives, their jobs, their passions, what was meaningful to them. And I'll never forget one woman's response. I asked the simple question, how has working here at Raven and Lily changed your life? I remember so clearly her eyes glowing in that room. She looked at me and said, before Raven and Lily, I was waiting to die. I had nothing left, no hope, no joy, nothing. Every day, I just waited for death to come, and I prayed it would come soon. I fought back this lump in my throat and tried to keep my composure. I wanted to rush across the room and just hold her. But then a smile came over her face, and she said, now that Raven and Lily is here, everything is different. I have a job that I come to every day. I'm surrounded by women that love me, and I love them, and we enjoy our work. And at night, I go home to a house I can now provide for my children, and I feed them food that I was able to pay for that day. I thank God every day for Raven and Lily. I know it can be frustrating to hear stories like the one I told earlier about Clarice, but the reality is that you and I vote every single day whether we're going to enable those situations to continue or we're going to vote for better solutions. The reality is that we are all connected. Every time we make a purchase, we set into motion a domino effect of actions that can result in a different world in the future. Through every decision, every purchase, every action that we make, we're shaping what we want the future of this world to look like. We can choose to shop fashion that does much more than just make us look good. We can change the life for a woman with every t-shirt, every dress, every tank top that we purchase. And trust me, I know this can all seem small in the scheme of things. You have busy lives and there's so much going on in the world. But for someone like Clarice, it's a whole lot better for you to do something small than to do nothing at all. Thank you.